Hello and welcome back to the kitchen. If you are new around here, my name is Jill, and around here we are creating a life that we love, and we're doing it on a budget with lots of creativity and not keeping up with any Joneses. Today we're going to be rehydrating that sourdough starter that we dehydrated the other day. So we dehydrated this. If you want to go back and watch that video, you can learn how to do that. The reason why we did it is because I shoved my sourdough starter jar up into my canisters, forgot about it, didn't feed it, it molded, it was gross. And so I dumped it out and I had to go back to my friend and get another starter. And I thought, I don't want to have to keep doing that. So I need a way to preserve it. So I've never done this, but I've done my research and we're going to do this together and we're going to do it as kind of an experiment. Here's the flakes we pulled off our parchment paper the other day. And here is the flakes that I ground with my magic bullet into powder. Okay, so we don't need a lot on hand to do this. Basically, you just need your starter jar. You're gonna want it to be clean, obviously. I went ahead and stuck a rubber band on here since it's a tiny one, but since I already want it, because I'm doing kind of an experiment, I labeled both mine powder and flakes. We're gonna need some flour. We're gonna need some water, distilled or spring or something that's not tap water or well water, unless you really know what's coming out of your well. But sometimes if you're having trouble with your bread, check out your water and see if maybe that's not something that's hurting your yeast in your sourdough bread. So that is something. So I'm just using bottled water that I've warmed up to get it like kind of room temperature. And then I'm going to need a spatula. I'm going to need something to measure it with. You can either be fancy and use a little kitchen scale and measure by grams, or you can just simply measure by teaspoons, tablespoons, whatever. And I'm gonna try to do both and show you kind of how you're gonna do it, but you're gonna be measuring it out. And it's pretty simple. I mean, I tend to go by tablespoons, teaspoons, and cups when I'm doing all my bread. I don't measure by grams generally. I know some people say that it should be that way, but I just really try to keep it simple because it's just bread, right? It's just bread. I'm not entering any contests. It's just bread. I'm gonna take my little cup here just to measure it out. So I'm going to set it on my scale. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get somewhere around 15 grams of sourdough starter. So it's going to be hard to say with the flakes how much 15 grams is, but I'll pour it in my hand so you can kind of see, get an idea. Good palmful. Okay, so we are going to put that in here. 15 grams of flakes. Now we're going to do 15 grams. Oops. There we go. That's about 15 grams. And we're going to put this into our powder jar. Okay. I'm going to pour this right back out. Do you see that? That is our 15 grams. And do you see how it is very equivalent to 1 tablespoon? If that helps you at all. So you can either do 15 grams to start off with, or a tablespoon of the powder, or a palmful of the flakes. But again, a lot of this stuff, you're going to be looking at it and you're going to be measuring by the eyeball. So I wouldn't stress it out too much. Okay, I'm going to put these two things away so they're not in our way. So now I have some water. And this is where it's just going to be really, really simple. We put some water in both these. I use 2 tablespoons or about 30 grams of water in here. And then we're just mixing it up. And so like this one, I just broke it up like you would crackers in a soup. Then I'm going to add a tablespoon of flour. Now, you can use white flour, must be unbleached. Whatever you end up using, make sure it is unbleached. White flour, unbleached. Wheat flour. I'm using rye flour today just because I feel like, whether it's true or not, I feel like rye flour is like sending your sourdough to the gym. And it just really beefs it up a little bit. So this is pretty much it. Like, don't stress yourself out. Just get it to like a thick pancake batter consistency, a thick waffle consistency, something like that, right? I'm just gonna pop the lid on there. I'm not gonna screw anything on. And then in about 12 hours, I'm gonna feed them again. Okay, so now we are done with the feeding. So we have put 15 grams of starter, dehydrated starter, and 15 grams of flour, and we have put in 30 grams of water. Or in Jill's terms, a tablespoon of starter, a tablespoon of flour, or 2 tablespoons of water. We made sure that the water was room temperature, not too hot, not too cold, and that it was not chlorinated, that it's good distilled spring water, something like that. And that the flour is not bleached. It's an unbleached white, or it's a rye, or it's a wheat flour, or something like that. I like rye because it feels like I'm taking my sourdough to the gym. It's like giving it a personal trainer. It just beefs it up faster. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But I think I heard it somewhere and I believed it. Now we have started our first step, right? We have the first initial little feeding in there. We're starting the rehydration. So now in about 2 to 4 hours, and this is, you don't have to do this, but in 2 to 4 hours, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna do it again. But this time, I'm just gonna keep it really simple. 30 grams and 30 grams, water, flour. 2 tablespoons, 2 tablespoons, water, flour. Same thing, room temperature, unbleached, unchlorinated. Put the lid loosely back on top, set it over there, and then after that, every 12 hours, I'm gonna feed this thing. So set a timer, whatever it is, go in, same thing, 2 tablespoons, 2 tablespoons. Now, here's the thing. While I say 2 tablespoons and 2 tablespoons of flour and water, if it comes out too runny or too thick, then adjust. A little bit more water, a little less water, right? Or a little more flour, a little less flour, whatever it is. Because here's the goal you're looking for. You're looking for the consistency. You want it to be like waffle batter, okay? You want it to be fairly thick, but not too thick, but you definitely don't want it to be too runny, and this is why. So if this clicks into your brain, when those fermentation bubbles start to get activated, and they start giving you signals that your starter is starting to mature and be ready, you need something that tells you that it is. And those things are going to be those fermentation bubbles that come up through the starter. If your starter is too thin, those bubbles are going to come up, they're going to pop, and they're not going to leave any trail, right? Because it's so liquidy that it'll just meld back over on top of each other. Nobody will even be the wiser. But if it's just thick enough, those bubbles are going to get caught in there. You're going to see them on the side of the glass. You're going to see them on the top. If it's too thick, they can't get all the way through. So watch for the bubbles. Waffle batter. Good, thick waffle batter is what you're looking for, that type of consistency. And if you see anything, like if you feel like you're not getting the bubbles that you want, then just keep feeding it. If you see mold, abandon ship. Start over. It's just not worth it at this stage. It's just not worth it. But if you're just not seeing the bubbles that you want, just keep feeding it a few more days. Make sure that your room temperature is good, that your water temperature is okay, that it's not too cold, you're not killing your yeast. Make sure that your flour, again, is unbleached. And then by the time it gets to the point where it is nice and bubbling, you're going to have that rubber band on your jar. Every time you feed, you're going to put it right to the top of where that starter sits in the jar. And then in theory, then once it's ready, the amount of starter in the jar is going to double. So your rubber band is going to be here, but your starter is going to be up here in the jar. And then you're going to have bubbles all over the side when you look at that jar. And it's going to smell yeasty. It's going to smell like sourdough. And that's going to be a really good indicator that it's probably ready. You can test it by taking off a little piece of it and throwing it into a glass of water. And if it floats, they say it's good to go. Those are all really good indicators. Like I said, we just did this stage and now we're going to do it again in 2 hours, but you don't have to. You can wait 12 hours and just keep doing your 12-hour feedings. That's fine. It's just bread. It is just bread. It's no big deal. So it's going to take you about 24 hours or all the way up to 5 days before this gets going and gets active again. I'm going to feed mine in 2 hours and then I'm going to go and feed it every 12 hours. In a few days, I should have lovely sourdough starter, and I'll have the 2 forms to compare it to if the flakes and the powder made any difference at all in how you store it. Good luck with your bread. Remember, it's just bread. You can make it as complicated as you want, but you don't need to. It's just bread. Enjoy it. Have fun. Enjoy. Make yourself some homemade butter. I got a video on that. Homemade butter with some homemade sourdough bread, nice and fresh out of the oven. So good. And this right here, this is going to be Christmas crack. If you want to come back for another video, I'll be making that later. It's delicious. My sister makes it and it's the best treat ever and I haven't had it in years. And again, now that I'm in Kansas, I'm left to do these things on my own. So I'm going to make my own Christmas crack. Anyway, if you have enjoyed any of this content, if this has contributed to your confidence, if this has helped you in growing in your kitchen, then please subscribe to my channel, like, send a comment, let me know what you're doing in your kitchen, your homeschool, your homestead, whatever it is. We got a lot going on over here too. I'd love to hear about what's going on over there. I hope you had a great week. God has been so good to me this week, and I hope he has to you.